Welcome everybody to SEO Office Hours. My name's Michael Chidzey. I'm an SEO here from Good Signals. And part of what we do, along with special guests, are these office hour sessions where people can jump in and ask their questions around their website and web search. Nobody here is in the hot seat, by the way. It's one of those that we might not know all the answers, but multiple heads thinking about a problem should help. We've had a bunch of questions submitted, so I have them here. But if anybody has any questions during it, please just use the chat functionality and we'll prioritize you. To submit questions for future sessions, if you go to goodsignals.com/SEO office hours, you can basically join future live calls, you can submit questions, you can watch previous sessions, and you can also find out how to join the panel. With me this week, she's back. We've got Julianna Turnbull, also known as SEO Jo Blogs. Jo was so good last time, we thought we would get her back and keep her. Jo, I messed this up last time, so I'm going to try and get it right. But Jo is the CEO of Turn Global, which is a remote digital marketing consultancy. Jo set up Search London 13 years ago. This year, set up Search Barcelona. They're both events. Jo's also a mentor, a speaker, a judge at all things SEO and search. And you can follow Jo on Twitter. Jo, did I get everything?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me back. It was wonderful to be on the show yesterday, and I'm really excited for the future of the Good Signals SEO office hours.
Cool. And then also with Jo, we have Natalie Slater. So Natalie is a freelance SEO consultant, has worked both agency side and in-house. I always think they're the best when you know both worlds. Has worked across lots of different verticals and does anything from strategy, technical, content, link building, helps people with things like core updates, website migrations. I actually saw Natalie speak a couple of years ago on, I think the first talk was about website migrations and then the other was a panel. And I thought then at some point we'll do something together. And so this is it. So that's really cool. And you can follow Natalie on LinkedIn. Natalie, have I missed anything? Should I have said anything else?
I don't think so. I think you've nailed it. Thank you very much. And thanks for having me.
Oh, cool. So we'll just get going. I can't see any questions, I don't think, in the chat. So we'll just go for it. So question number one, is buying a website with a large backlink profile and redirecting it to our website a good strategy? Natalie, do you want to start?
I don't really want to trigger the "it depends" klaxon so early on, but it does. It really does in this case. It can be a very useful strategy if you can find an age domain with a load of relevant links on it that is exactly relevant to the service you're providing and what you're going after. I feel that those kind of opportunities are extremely rare, but there are plenty of brands out there that have done that. There are brands that make a living out of that. So that's one side. But the other side is if you see that the value in the domain is simply that it is aged and it has a load of links, you just need to be really careful at looking at the quality of those links and the relevancy. And it may be that you purchase something for a certain sum and it actually does nothing because the relevancy isn't there, or even worse, there could be, Google say these days that they ignore poor quality links. But there are cases of still like manual actions being put against sites and it's rare these days, but it still does happen. Somebody raised this from the other day. You can still get links that are bad for your site. I'd be very cautious. I'd just make sure the relevancy is there.
What about you, Jo? Any thoughts?
It's similar to what Natalie said. I've done a lot of backlink removal for many sites back in the day, so I'm very aware of naughty links or irrelevant links and poor quality links and getting those manual actions. I would be very cautious on what you buy. Don't look at the links and the issues in it.
I was thinking about this a little bit this morning when I was writing these out, and I think it's not the best question, I don't think, because I think if you're solely buying something like that, a whole website purely for the purpose of just redirecting a load of links, it's probably not the best reason to do it. I would be thinking about things like the actual users on that website, the content that's on there, Is it relevant to what you're selling, doing? I used to work for an events company, and a big part of their business is stag and hen do's. So if you're in the US, that's bachelor parties. I think in Australia, it's called bucks parties or something like that. But we did a similar thing where we actually bought, it was like the only wedding magazine for men. And it was set up by a journalist from The Guardian. It was like a hobby. He was going through that process of being a man and realizing there wasn't a lot of content. And so we bought that, but it was because the content was really good. It had lots of users, and it wasn't, obviously it had a great link profile as well because everything was well written, but we didn't buy it purely for that. And then just over time consolidated it. I think it can work, but I wouldn't do it just for links. So sorry, that I think the problem's the question. Yeah, are you like me where you love looking at things like Flipper and stuff like that and just seeing what websites are for sale and do they have any potential or anything like that? That's like a guilty pleasure of mine.
I have done. I don't tend to get the time to look into that kind of thing, but it certainly in the past you weigh up, oh, that seems like quite a good deal for that domain. I might, but I'll never ever have the time to actually build anything on them, but it can certainly be useful to look out for age domains for sure.
Again, at that same company, we bought a website. It was called something like Wedzilla or Bridezilla, but that was mainly a US audience, and this company has a UK audience. So although we bought it and we tried to see if we could make it work and move some of the content over, in the end, we decided to keep it as a very separate website just because it didn't add that value. Thankfully, that wasn't as expensive as the other one. So the other one was really useful, but it's so easy to get caught up in the moment and go, oh my God, this looks like such a good deal. And then you start going through the like content and backlink profile and so on. Okay, cool. Anything else to add to that?
No, I was just going to say that I used to do that with my sister. Actually, we used to buy lots of domains and then we were going to build loads of websites on it. And in the end, we didn't, and it just cost us money. So yes, you just need to have the time to do that.
Yeah. And also if you go in and you buy an existing website, obviously you've got the cost of running it until you do redirect it, but you've also got the hassle of all of the back end, for example, and most websites have issues. I don't think I've ever come across a perfect website. So you end up having to manage temporarily 2 websites and just making sure that person owns all the content and that sort of stuff before you buy it from them. Okay, next question. Are newswires worth it anymore? Sorry, I didn't say who wants to go first. Natalie, are you happy to go for it?
It's another one that needs a definition of the definition of worth it. Worth it for links in terms of link equity coming from them, and it be the only place that the press releases go? Probably not, because for years now, those sites haven't passed any, they've all been no follow, and it's all syndicated content, it's all the same thing. So the value, the direct kind of SEO value of that, it might be questionable, but for their purpose, which is mass distribution of press releases to a wide variety of publications, that's still very valuable in terms of getting your story and your press release out there. So I'd say yes, but look at the cost versus the cost of other forms of outreach and submitting your story to journalists. I think it's one of those things. I'm not a PR person. I don't really do much in the way of link building anymore. So I'm not in the hot seat on that kind of thing. But I would not write newswires off as a way of distributing your press release.
No, I think like years ago, probably people like me, but you just put any old story out because it used to get you some great coverage, and I think we've ruined it basically. It doesn't work. So you're right. I think it is about getting it out there, getting your story out there quickly, and hopefully in front of other people that you might not contact directly. Yeah, and I think there is something as well about recognizing that a press release is a certain type of content, and obviously it's from the company and so on, and it's quite obvious it's from the company. So I'm sure Google understands that as well. Joe, do you have any thoughts?
First of all, yeah, we didn't ruin it. It was the naughty
No,
people that abused
I was
the
joking.
No, I know. So I think it was actually quite a good way to get your story out, these newswires. I think it was the fact that people took it too far and always wanted to get these followed links. But along the same lines of you and Natalie, that Yeah, it's fine to use to promote, as in to get out a story or your press release, but it doesn't have the same impact as it had, obviously, I think probably like 10 or so years ago, or even more when it first came out.
Yeah. I think also with anything digital PR related, I think it's all about the actual quality of the idea and story itself. That's why somebody would cover it, and not just because not if it's not a great story and it comes in front of the journalist, they're not going to use it. Yeah. But I think there is some value in it, but not if it's your link building strategy. Okay, next question. So I've been working in the local service home improvement niche for the last 3 years. How should I structure my location pages, service area pages for rankings and conversions? Joe, do you want to start this time?
Sorry, can you clarify that again? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
The internet cut out on my end. Sorry.
Okay. So I've been working in the local service home improvement niche for the last 3 years. How should I structure my location pages / service area pages for rankings and conversions?
Okay. So yeah, for the local service improvement niche, you need to decide. Well, there's lots of different elements of home improvement. One could be plumbing, one could be interior design or soft furnishing. Another one could be renovating your kitchen. So it's important to how you structure your site is that you actually have one key theme, key sort of topic for each page. And then you want to obviously make sure that you are optimizing for your area. So it's really important to make sure you have your Google My Business profile set up with the latest reviews, with your Q&A within your Google My Business, and also with updated photos as well of some of your work that you've done.
What about you, Natalie?
Was the question was about service and area pages?
Yeah, so they've said both. They've basically said location pages / service area pages. So yeah, and it's home improvement, which is quite, we could do with a little bit more context, to be honest. So as Joe said, it could be a part of home improvement. So it could be like an interior designer who is working in Camden, for example, and wants to rank for interior designer Camden. Yeah.
Or it could be a firm that wants to rank in a lot of different areas.
Yes.
So
it could
be if it was a plumbing firm in different areas. So if that's the case, local SEO for someone that is serving a particular service area and it's where their bricks and mortar presence is there's lots of real life signals you can be given to search engines to prove that and back you up for ranking locally for those kind of terms. But if it's you've got a service and you serve all these areas and you want to be relevant for plumbing in Camden, plumbing in Hampstead, plumbing in Edgware, Golders Green, whatever, then sometimes the local SEO requirement it's frustrating because we do end up creating these pages that all are quite similar, and differentiating them is difficult, and you feel like you're flooding the internet with the same thing over and over again. But that's what we do. But if it's about structuring those kinds of pages, the most important thing is making them as unique as possible and providing as many signals that. So if it was a plumber that was based in Camden but served all the Northwest and North London, and you wanted pages about each of those things, it's good to get a map in there. It would be great if there's a way to demonstrate that you have a physical presence in each of those places, but it sounds like, for sake of argument, if it's that kind of company, they probably wouldn't. Then Google My Business becomes a bit difficult, because Google My Business, although you can spam the hell out of it, one can spam the hell out of it. We try not to, but Google's guidelines say that the most important thing is that you have bricks and mortar presence in an area if you want to be ranking in the local 3-pack. So the pages themselves, I'm just thinking, unique content. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, so something that I've noticed in, say, things like the wedding industry is that they're quite good at including things like case studies on those pages for like local things, local brides, linking out to the local venues that they operate in, having testimonials from people in that area that have talked about their actual wedding. And I suppose things like that you can relate that to plumbing as well. I'm sure you get case studies and testimonials and all those things, and you get your local experts that could potentially share some tips, advice, all that kind of stuff, who services that area maybe?
I think that's exactly how you do it. That's the way you differentiate the service you're providing from Camden to Islington. You're providing exactly the same service, but you want to demonstrate to those two audiences that you really are the result for them. How do you do that? You have to do that by putting other marketing messages out there that are legitimate, that demonstrate that you do that. So I think that's a great idea.
But not having like paragraphs and paragraphs of the borough of Camden is.
But you see, that's one of the levers that people have had to pull. So that's why we end up with all those local pages that look like that.
I always think a good industry to learn from with stuff like this is the travel industry, because obviously they tend to have location pages and have amazing guides and things to do and all that kind of stuff. And if there's a way of thinking, what's the plumbing version of this, or what's the wedding or the interior design version of this, probably looking at those industries. What about you, Joe? Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about, as you said, also about testimonials. It would be great if you have those case studies for the Camden or for that area that you've worked in. And also, if you can get some local coverage, that would be great. And then obviously linking back to those pages, because we always link back. We don't always, but sometimes we can link a lot more to the homepage than to the deeper level pages. And yeah, if you can get those testimonials about those specific areas and the case studies, that's even better. It is quite difficult to get case studies, but if you can try and do that for your up and coming clients, then perfect. They can see before and after, or how you help them.
Yeah, I think there's a business that I bought some shutters from actually for my house, and I was thinking that with somebody like that, if they got people to take photos of the before and afters and stuff like that, would be a really simple thing, right? And it doesn't then need to be an entire case study. It can just be, this is what we did on this particular road or in this particular place, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, pictures can paint 1,000 words.
Yeah, cool. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're almost halfway there. How are we doing for time? Yeah, we're doing good. Is it really necessary to include keywords in both the title tag and meta description? Natalie, are you all right to go first with that?
Yeah, it's highly advised, I'd say. If you can, it depends how many keywords there are that you're targeting on a page and how many synonyms there are. And certain things could get quite silly if you're trying to hit absolutely everything. But say you've got a very straightforward category page that's about a very straightforward topic.
Yeah.
Red shoes, for example, it would be remiss to not mention that within the meta description. The reason it's advised to include keywords in titles and meta descriptions is to give an extra indicator in search. When you search for something like red shoes, the beneficial thing about it in the meta description is that it is highlighted, and the idea is that is a bit of a subliminal signal to you that, oh yeah, that is about the thing I've searched for. And the theory is that it should improve click-through rate. And there are many anecdotes about that working. That's why we usually say get your keywords in meta descriptions. But necessary, it's not going to make you rank higher, but it just makes sense that you would get your messaging aligned as much as possible.
Yeah, I totally agree. Joe, have you got anything to add?
Right, Natalie sums it up perfectly. Nope.
Perfect. Cool. Let's move on. Great. Next question. How do you strike a balance between informative content and commercial content in our blog post strategy? Natalie, are you happy to start? I
typically will come across company blogs that have been set up, and the general thought is in certain industries, oh, we need a blog. Why? We need a blog because we've got a website and you need to put stuff on the blog, and that's where we can put all our company news. Yay, we've got a blog. But to that, you will often then see that blog is not fulfilling like a particular SEO function. Like it's not driving additional traffic. It's not pulling in any extra visitors who don't already know who you are. So in terms of striking a balance, absolutely, that's where company news should usually go if you don't have a massively intricate content hub that has news here and blog here. But I would say the blog needs to be predominantly informational. You'll expect, when you get blog traffic, you should expect it to have a higher bounce rate than your commercial pages. Usually it's about people are trying to find an answer to a question, and that's where blog posts come into their own. So the balance, I would favor informational content on a blog always, but I totally understand that companies need to get the more self-serving stuff out there. But about commercial, like about sales, the blog's job isn't really to do the hard sell. The blog's job is to provide additional social proof that you know what you're talking about. It's marketing more than sales. So I'd always be inclined to be as not that commercial at all, really.
Yeah. It's interesting. We worked with somebody a while ago who they do basically training, and they do Excel training, and they have this blog which is amazing. It gets so much traffic, and all of the articles and stuff are just informational. So it's how to do certain tasks in Excel. The problem is there's a disconnect between the blog and then the actual commercial parts of the business. So they'll get a ton of traffic, say from the US, but they offer these courses in London. And so you can also, this particular person wanted to really continue growing that blog content and almost focusing more on that than the commercial content on those kind of commercial pages. And I always think you've got to, you've just got to spend your time wisely. Like I think we've got a couple of examples on our site where it does do that. Not everything is commercial. It's like you said, a lot of it is just helpful, showing how to do things. But for instance, we've got a post that ranks really well for SEO conferences in London. We do SEO, so it makes sense that I love going to conferences. So it makes sense that we would have a post about that. It ranks really well. And we mention on there the fact that we do bespoke SEO training. So I think that's quite a nice mix. And we've got some other examples like that, but it is really hard to do it without the person, as soon as they get on the blog post, go, oh, this is not going to help me.
That said, like I'm just thinking, like in our industry. Sorry.
No, sorry, I didn't say, but it does help them. It's just a longer conversion. The blog is warming someone up to then maybe purchase from you or interact with you later.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Natalie?
I was just going to say, in our industry, we are classic for providing content that may allow the person searching for that thing to go and do it themselves and to not sell our services. But then I was thinking, you also have some quite major players in this industry that I'm not going to mention names, but you have sites that immediately go on there and it's like, join my newsletter now. And you like this? I can do that. And the hard sell is there all the time. And it's whatever your marketing strategy is, really. It just came to me.
I also just wanted to say on that, you just talked about strategy. So I think for the blog, it needs to be really clear within the organization. What is the purpose of the blog? What is your marketing strategy? In your marketing strategy, you're going to have the blog to warm up your leads, they capture the funnel, the top of the funnel. You show that you're the expert in that field. And then you'll have your category pages, your product pages for actually converting people. I think going back to your original question about this sort of balance, that needs to be addressed before you have the blog. Or if you're a new person joining that company and you've seen that blog has been used for or has been trying to be used for commercial intent, you need to address it then and tell the rest of the company what is the purpose of the blog and perhaps revisit that strategy.
Yeah, I think for smaller businesses, a blog could be or can be quite a good way of ranking for some long tail terms that are commercial, where they can add some value where they may not be able to compete with the bigger firms for commercial terms, and might be able to use the blog to rank for related terms. But yeah, just try not to make it, like Natalie said, with somebody standing next to a form going, inquire now, inquire now. Cool. Okay. Should we go for the next one? Why is Google overwriting meta descriptions for so many websites? It seems like there's only a 40% chance of your meta descriptions being displayed. Natalie, are you happy to start?
That's a very precise figure.
Yeah, I think that's.
I do. Yeah. Yes. So Google does rewrite page titles and meta descriptions if it deems that the page title and meta description have not quite met the user's query, and it will dynamically rewrite those. And I don't really, I mean, it's irritating when you've handcrafted a page title that your page title is exactly how you want it. But meta descriptions, but there's obviously a reason these things are being rewritten. Sorry, what's the question? Does how do you stop them doing it, or does it matter that they do it?
It was just more why are they doing it? I think it seems that there's only 40% chance. So yeah, why is Google overwriting them? It's not very asking for our help.
No, for the user. So it's to ensure that the user gets a result, the best possible result for their query. And so if your site is, so it seems like it's there, but if Google has decided that what's in your meta description doesn't quite serve the user's query, it will dynamically rewrite it and pick something else from the page.
Yeah. Which can be quite handy if it's a long page and it's got loads of different topics, particularly blog posts. And actually, if it makes the meta description more relevant to the user's intent, then I guess that can be really helpful. Joe, have you got anything to add? Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, I'm on mute. Sorry about that. No, I think you summed it up perfectly, Natalie.
Yeah, I don't know if it is 40%. It would be a hard thing to ever know, right?
Yeah, I think when it started happening, people started trying to measure it, but I don't think it's a bad development. I think it does make sense for the user.
And I guess it adds more weight to one of the previous questions that you asked about around adding keywords to your meta titles and description. If you're writing a meta description and page title that probably isn't the best for your actual website or for that particular page, you'll see that Google changed it. It's good to really carry out that keyword research and look at the user intent for those pages and write your descriptions and meta titles like that.
I guess as well, the amount of websites I've looked at before where they've forgotten to fill in things like meta descriptions. So actually, from that perspective, it's a good thing rather than just covering the first couple of words at the top of a page. It's actually giving something more useful in that situation as well. That's good.
True.
Okay, next question is, what's the best strategy for local rankings? And we also had somebody else ask a question who I thought was going to be on here, who is actually setting up a bar in Farringdon. And so this is quite similar to the question we had before. So we might be repeating ourselves a little bit. But yeah, two separate questions. This one is, what's the best strategy for local rankings? And that person's was, how do I start ranking for a term like bar in Farringdon? Do you want to start this time, Joe?
Yeah, sure. So what is the best strategy for local ranking? So Google My Business profile, make sure that is definitely filled out and that you have optimized as much as possible. I think I mentioned before, you can have some questions in the local My Business, in the GMB profile. And also make sure that you've got, especially for actual brick and mortar stores, make sure you do have the latest reviews. You can do that in your store itself. You can also follow up in emails to people that have purchased from you. But it's really important to have the latest views on your Google My Business profile, along with your images too, because I've often gone to in-store or restaurant, and they've have reviews of 1 year ago. If you're really wanting to get those customers, make sure you've got them at least a few that are just under just a month or even a few weeks old. So review updated images to a Q&A question in Google My Business. And also make sure you claim your Google My Business profile. And then on your website, actually make sure that you do obviously link to your contact form and have a map there. Natalie mentioned that before, but also write content around the fact that it is a local business and make sure that each page actually is optimized for a different key topic.
Natalie, do you want to add anything?
I would say something you touched on before, Joe, on local links. We're talking about it in the context of different areas, but local link building is absolutely crucial, I would say, because the thing about the question of local SEO strategy versus generic SEO strategy, so many of the fundamentals are the same. They really are. So it's not like a a set of separate tricks apart from the Google Business Profile stuff, which you also need to do. But you get the opportunity to do a load more local link building. It's about working with local press, anybody else you work with in the area that might refer back to you from their side, any joint ventures, any real world relationships you hold in the local area is good to review to see if it can be beneficial for your SEO. Anyone in a networking situation, can they link back to you? Can you do some joint content or PR or something? So there's the link building side of it, and then also structured data. I would say you just make sure you've made use of all of the structured data types that relate to your locality. So there's the straightforward ones like marking up your address and your name, address, phone number data, or contact. All the social media profiles demonstrate that they are you, because I can't say this for certain, but you could be making more use of those social media profiles in a local context. I just think you need to knit the thing together and make it absolutely crystal clear that your business is a local business and it's serving this area. As many signals as you can throw at it. And structured data and link building would be the two, I'd say.
Just keeping to the bar theme, there is a bar I think it's in Balham or somewhere like that does things like roast dinners and burgers for dogs, and you do like dog parties and stuff like that, and it's obviously just a way of getting press and so on to write about them and the fact that if you go to Balham you can do this and so on. But I thought that was quite neat because they've just got a special dog menu, which I'm sure is probably just some dog food and it looks like it's a burger, but they had those photos of all the dogs in the sitting around a table with party hats on and stuff like that. And the only other thing I'd add is one thing that could work is actually just seeing what currently ranks for, say, bar in Farringdon or bar in Camden or wherever it is. And if you have any kind of list posts there, places like Time Out, for example, seeing whether you can pitch to feature on that list. So getting in touch with that journalist, finding out if they're going to update that page, and if you can get them down and show them what your bar's about. And so that's not really doing SEO for your site. I suppose if they link to it, it is. But if it's a page that ranks and gets traffic, then that could work.
I also wanted, that was a good thing that you mentioned about the dog burgers. It's about really trying to distinguish and show your USP. So we're coming into the Christmas season. So if you are wanting to rank for bars or restaurants and things like that, this is the time to really USP. And reach out to the local journalists and try and get into Time Out magazine or other sites that are like Things to Do in London. You have to really show why yours is different, because there is so much competition out there.
Yeah, I think as well, I like we were talking about company blogs before, and if you are doing company parties, I don't know if they're writing about some of their activities and things like that in terms of what they do for their staff, just getting them to mention you and stuff like that if they can, but also getting those case studies like we were saying before. So if there are companies having their Christmas parties, that's great stuff for things like Google My Business, photos of that, and getting them to do those reviews. One of the things that I think you mentioned, Joe, was around trying to get reviews from people that have been there. Have you got any ideas in terms of how to incentivize people, or not necessarily incentivize people, but how do you encourage people to go and leave me a review if you own a bar or a plumbing firm or whatever it is?
Yes, actually, I've been in quite a few bars and restaurants here, and some of them have been quite new, and they just come up and said, "Oh, if you really enjoyed it, please can you leave me a review? We really find it's really important for us." Or sometimes they're a bit more personal. "Oh, I'm judged on how many views I get."
Yeah,
that's like there are other places also when you go in, you can see like, "Oh, leave us a Google review." If someone is
Joe, sorry, I think your
email list.
I think your internet's playing up a little bit. Yeah, no, that's all right. But that last bit wasn't very clear. So would you mind just repeating that?
Good question. I cannot remember that.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Basically, don't be shy to ask people when you're at your restaurant or bar to please leave us a review. Okay.
Yeah. We my mum actually owns a pub on Cheddar Gorge, and they used to do a thing where they would encourage their staff to basically ask for reviews. And if the staff got a mention in the review, they actually used that as a bit of they would give them a bonus or something like that. So they turned it into part of their kind of culture where not only were staff giving really good service, but they were also asking for that. And then the one that got the most, everybody was celebrating it each time somebody got mentioned. Or somebody's just put a comment. Let's have a quick look. Chat. I know some use QR codes and leave them on the table. Yeah, perfect. QR codes, and also just actually having on the menu and on places, leave us a review. Any other ideas around reviews? Maybe not just for bars, but other types of businesses?
It is just ask, but so other types of businesses, how it's so if it's a business where you have so you may have your previous customers' contact details and you've done bigger jobs for them, if it's not like fast food or bar or something, just getting back in touch with customers. If it's not part of your customer service strategy already, getting back in touch to just request a review can be effective. That's worked for a couple of my clients. Just if we're launching in this other area, it really help us and you mentioned about incentivizing. I know loads of companies who do incentivize their customers to leave reviews, like offering a discount or a voucher or something, whether that comes into the category of, it's not link buying or manipulating reviews, but they all do it. So,
somebody's just put in the chat, a few places I've ordered from have offered a 10% off your next order or something like that if you leave a review. I guess the key thing is, if somebody's had a really good experience with you and they're really happy, then asking them to tell the world about it is not a bad thing. I guess you shouldn't really need to have to say have 50% off your next order to leave a review. What about negative reviews? If obviously if you're a local business, you're trying to rank really well, and then somebody leaves a really bad review, what should you do about it?
You should always answer any negative review. If you don't answer it, then it looks like you have something to hide. Somebody might be leaving a review because it's a general negative review, so address it and you can, let's say, make those changes to make sure that it happens again. Or sometimes people are making negative reviews because they're letting off steam. So again, address that. And if it's not negative, you need to say, okay, well, we already addressed this in the restaurant and everything is fine. Or you enjoyed your meal, for example. So definitely address any of those negative
reviews. Any thoughts on that, Natalie?
None that are SEO focused, really. I mean, I have some recent experiences of exceptional customer service when I have left a negative review, and they went above and beyond to resolve my complaint, and that was really good. But like, I'd left a Trustpilot review, which I think was being moderated and hadn't even made it onto the web. So I just don't know how applicable that experience is to SEO. I think. No,
you're right. We should keep to the brief. We will, but on that, when I've worked for other companies before, we've always tried to get in contact with the person and deal with it like you would in real life. So actually try and find out what the problem is, how do we remedy it, and hopefully by sorting it, they'll then take that down. Okay, we know that we're going to launch a new website next year, and the plan is to change it drastically. Should we hold off anything SEO until after that? What are your thoughts, Natalie? Let's start with you.
I'm going to need to make some assumptions of what drastically means. If a website is being changed drastically, I'd say you get the SEO involved as early as possible, because if there's a website migration involved in this scenario, it's not something now. It totally depends if you've been doing SEO up till now and you're putting changes on hold because you think there's no point making these changes to these pages because they're going to be different in 3 months' time. In that kind of scenario, I think that thinking holds. It's better to devote time and attention to SEO changes that will definitely carry over, like link building. But if we've got a website and it's gaining a reasonable amount of traffic at the moment, we want to totally change it. When do we involve an SEO strategist? Now, because it's not something you just layer on top of a website. Well, so many might seem that think that it is, but it's not something you don't sprinkle the SEO dust at the end. No. It needs careful planning, and without incorporating SEO in that kind of restructure, redesign, migration, you could end up with a traffic decline at the end of it. It's better for SEO to be involved as early as possible.
Yeah, because from the sounds of the question, so it's basically hold off on anything SEO until after the change. So it suggests this person wasn't planning to think about SEO before making those changes, and like you said, almost sprinkle it on afterwards, as opposed to actually making it a part of, is there anything that they could do now to the current website so it's not such a big change. So if they're changing URL structures, or if they're changing some of the content, they could start doing that now and actually see if it works. But also it could be that if they don't think about this stuff and they go and make all these changes, A, if they're getting lots of organic traffic, they could potentially lose some of that. But B, whether they are or not, they might be missing lots of opportunities if they're not thinking about that during their sort of plan. But yeah, I get the impression from the question that it's, do we sprinkle on some SEO at some point? What are your thoughts, Jo?
Makes me very nervous.
Yeah.
So SEO is the simple, easy option. Think about it as soon as you're thinking about changing anything to your website. Definitely before you're making those changes. You both summarized and gave them great points. I have nothing else to add besides please do SEO before. Simple, easy option.
Yeah. Also, I have worked on projects before where the companies have been working on a new website that never actually launched. And I'm thinking one in particular that they had devs and designers and so on working on it for ages, and actually not investing any time into their existing site, thinking that there's no point, we've got a new site coming, and actually that site never actually launched. And I've seen that a couple of times. And so sometimes it's better to evolve what you've got, and if you're getting it closer to this new website, then that only makes things easier later on when you're making those changes. Cool. Okay, next one.
I will just can I just say one other thing about, because that question does come up about when do we do and often the question gets asked because there are budget constraints, and sometimes we can either have a new website or we can have some SEO, and it seems to be this either or equation, and you for some reason they can't have both. But I'd say if that is the situation someone's in, it's like, well, can we have the new website or some SEO? Then the answer is try and find a developer that really is taking SEO into account when they're building your new site. If you have to make that choice, be very careful about your choice of developer. Don't just assume that, when they say SEO is baked in, it's baked in. No, do your research on because there are development agencies that will take SEO into account to some degree if your budget is limited. The gold star recommendation is get an SEO as soon as possible.
And sometimes it doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be somebody that needs to spend months on it. It could just be to give some advice, help you recruit that development agency to make sure
exactly
they know what they're talking about when it comes to SEO. Because I think there are quite a lot of developers out there and I hope I don't offend anybody, but there are quite a lot of developers that I've come across that say they know what SEO is, but actually they don't. When I've started working with them, and it's been a case of helping them with that it's not all just technical, that there are other elements, and so maybe an SEO could help with that. Do you have anything else to add, Jo? Good.
No.
Right. Okay,
all
so
good. Next question. 9
minutes left. Okay, so only 2 questions. That's good. How long, this is a big one, so how long will a website migration take? And I think just before you answer, I think there are 2 elements to this question, or we don't have much context, so this could be looked at in 2 different ways. One is, on the day of the migration, how long will it take for Google to recrawl, index, understand, and so on? Or it could be, how long does a website migration take from the moment you decide that you're going to basically change your website? So I think, I don't have any context, so it could be either of those things. Natalie, do you want to start?
How long is a piece of string?
Yeah.
But so let's try and be helpful. It could be anything from a day to a year, depending on the size of your website, depending on the complexity of the project. It's like, how long does a rail project take? Well, I don't know. But so let's make an assumption that it's a kind of average sized site, a few thousand URLs or something. You need to take into account what's changing in the migration you need to take into account. Are URLs changing? Is page content changing? Is it just a reskin? Is it literally just a refresh of the website and possibly not really a migration at all, but you might need to review what's happening to the content? Is it a platform? Is it replatforming? Is it a domain change? All of these things need to be taken into account before then sort of estimating how long it would take. As a real kind of ballpark, I prefer there to be a kind of at least a 12-week timeline if I'm going to be involved in a migration project. But you so often get people coming in saying, all right, we're migrating in 2 weeks, we need an SEO. And you either take the work or you don't. But that's not ideal. It's better to give yourself enough time. Well, the actual doing of the work could be condensed into a few days, but all these things need consideration, and it's best to give yourself a sensible runway.
Yeah, it links to the last question actually, because in that, although a 12-week window would be good for the actual migration itself, but it would also be nice to be involved in what the new state looks like, so that actually once they start planning the project, to take SEO into consideration. And then actually the migration process itself should be quite smooth, as long as you know what's going on. The interesting thing about the question, though, I don't know the person that submitted it, but I think there's a sense of urgency there. And I always worry where you've got, how long will a website migration take? That suggests somebody wants to make this change happen really quickly.
Oh dear. Good luck.
Yeah. So just because like I've seen website migrations go wrong, it's one of those things that personally I would always assume it's going to take longer than you think. And Natalie was saying about planning it and having that time to put a checklist together where you've got everything covered so you don't miss something important. Because although, you know, you could try and do it really quickly, but if it fails, then you're going to spend a lot of time trying to fix it. It could even be years if it just goes horribly wrong. I've seen examples of that. What about you, Joe? Any thoughts?
I would just like to plan it and give yourself, more time than you think. When people are changing, for example, renovating a room, or they're changing some elements of their house, they always give themselves, or they should have a contingency plan, or can give themselves more time. And the same should be for websites. The thing is going to say, instead of 4 weeks, give yourself 8 weeks, because time gets eaten up from other things that become priorities, and things are not always thought about. That's why it's really important. Now, I said, have a checklist before the migration and have a checklist afterwards, and things that you need to check within 24 hours and then a week later, a month later, and keep the client informed. If you're a client, if it's in-house, keep your team and the C-level is doing manage expectations before the site migration, so that it's not a big shock if something really goes wrong, or if things might take a bit longer.
Yeah, I think it also depends, like Natalie was saying, on how big the website is, but also how important organic traffic is to the business in the first place. If it's a small website and actually they get very few visitors on there, then obviously you don't necessarily need to spend 3 months planning it, because you've not got much to lose. But if organic traffic is really important to the business, I would always stress never take that for granted and just try and do things properly. We've got 3 minutes left and we've got one last question, which is a totally different question. Okay, does the location of your website server matter? Does it matter what country your website is located? E.g., target audience is in the UK, but the server is in the US. So Joe, pre-warning, your sound isn't very clear. So I'll start with you, but if it's not very clear, then I might have to jump in, if that's all right. Go for it.
Well, that's fine. Sorry for the internet connection today. I would say get a server where it's in the same time zone as you for support you. If you have any issues, you can contact them. Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts, Natalie?
Yeah, I'd say it's not the location that matters, apart from what Joe said. If it makes sense for your server provider to be as close to you as possible and have good support and everything, but it doesn't if it's a good, so the most important thing is the uptime, the most important thing is the speed and the reliability of it. If you've got all of those things, I would say it doesn't really matter, but I would probably always make the decision to have things in the country, but that's just a personal preference, and that doesn't take budget into consideration. Or I'd probably favour a local supplier, but not for an SEO reason, more for a customer service reason.
And you can get things like certain servers that work really well with certain CMSs, or it could be there. I guess it's about the speed. I'm guessing that's why they're asking, and it's the perceived speed of the user, right? It's if it's fast, it shouldn't matter too much. I hadn't thought of what you said, Joe, about the support, and obviously that's really important. If it goes down, that you can contact somebody to get it back up. But yeah, if the questions around like geo targeting for servers, that's not a thing. So I don't think that's what they're asking, but I wouldn't worry about it from that perspective. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Great, thank you so much. That's all the questions. Thank you so much to both Joe and Natalie. That was awesome. I'm going to stop recording. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.